Hey guys, it's Clint. I want to talk a little bit about Kevin Eastman. He is the co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I've been debating this, whether to spill the beans or not. I think I will here. This is a Monday video, and usually Mondays are a little bit, they're just more tough to get good content for the video because there's not usually a lot of news that happens over the weekend. And so it's I don't know, it's kind of a slow news day. So I've been doing some research on Kevin Eastman. Why am I doing research on Kevin Eastman? That is because I scored an interview with Kevin Eastman that's going to be this week. So yeah, I'm really, really stoked about it. It's going to be on Wednesday. So yeah, I was looking through some of the stuff I could find about him, other interviews by him, and you know, what I wanted to say is I wanted to focus a little bit more on indie comics and, you know, his earlier history with indie comics, and sort of his pathway, because I do think there's a lot of things that are relevant. There's a lot of things that are very different today with how indie comics are done. But I do think there's still a lot of similarities. So such an interesting story. Really, really interesting. Few things like I wanted to point out. So basically these are where things could have gone wrong. And I can only imagine how many possible stories are out there, possible collaborations, just possibilities out there that could have been, but never were. And we'll never know. We will never know what other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, franchises could be had a certain series of decisions been made. So when it came to this, the first thing that I noticed just from watching a few interviews with Kevin Eastman is for him a big thing initially how he starts the story is that he went out and he started showing his art. He started putting himself out there a little bit and just showing it to people. And that is what led him to get a referral from somebody. I didn't pay all that much attention as to, but he got a referral to Peter Laird. And if you know anything about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you'll know that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were co-creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They got together, and that's when history happened. So this has always stuck out to me, and this will be my first point. This is suddenly becoming a top 10 list or something, top 5. We'll just say 5. I don't know. We'll go with it. Five ways that your comics could go wrong with, tips from Kevin Eastman, I guess. So the first is not putting yourself out there. Could you imagine if he was doing his art, he was working on his characters, and he just kept it to himself, even if he felt like it wasn't up to par, or if he felt like no one would be interested in anything he was doing. Who knows? There could be so many reasons that he didn't go out and talk to people, but because he showed off his art, that's how he got a referral, and that's how networking happens. That's how he met up with Peter Laird. So next he's met up with Peter Laird, and that's when they started talking, and they started doing sketches with each other, I guess. They would get together and show each other sketches, and he showed this one. I'm just going to scrub it a little bit. You've probably seen, a little bit of it. This first sketch of, there we go, somewhere right there. Oh man, first sketch. I'm really doing terrible with this. I'm a professional, trust me. You get the idea. There it is. There's the sketch. That is the first Ninja Turtle drawing ever, and they were inspired by Bruce Lee. They thought, what would be something ridiculous animal that he could be? How about a turtle? And so they picked the turtle, and this is where it all began, at least with that nugget of an idea. Now, I always think that this is really important, and that is that an idea can be dismissed as a terrible idea pretty quickly. I'm in the camp that ideas are far less important than execution of those ideas. If you have an idea, you think about this a little bit. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if you've never heard of it before, it is really silly. Even for comics at the time, it was very different, and they explained that a little bit. It sort of fit into this area of comics and indie comics that wasn't really popular at the time. And so it was, by all counts, a silly idea. They still talked about it together, and they developed a story, and they started working on how they would execute this idea had they decided to go with it. So they did. They went through that process, developed the story, and they decided it would be fun to just self-publish it and do a book. So they did a book. They cashed in their tax return, and they used the money to publish the book. And turns out it sold well. So I guess that's step number 2, is developing an idea. You know, it's not just coming up with an idea. People put way too much weight on an idea. It's not just coming up with the idea. It's developing that idea until it becomes a coherent story and it becomes a compelling story. That's exactly what they did with the Ninja Turtles. And if they hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have any of this. And who knows where their careers would be. I imagine things would be, pretty darn different than they are right now. So finishing things, I think is a good one. So another point that's in there is taking the risk or the investment. And if you think about it, for me, I'll tell you, to make Downcast, I knew it was going to cost some money initially to just get a campaign to put together, get an artist hired, all that kind of stuff. And so I took a little bit of money that I had saved up myself. I sold a bunch of not a bunch, but I sold a few Magic the Gathering cards that were worth some amount of money. If you follow it all, I had a play set of Tarmogoyfs, and I had 3 Liliana the Veils. I sold all of those cards, and essentially that's what gave me enough money in order to get Downcast put up on Indiegogo. And you can see I'm not comparing myself to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the few hundreds of dollars, I actually ended up spending about $1,400 to really get the campaign up and off the ground. Ended up, now I'm at $27,000. So I'd say that was a pretty good investment. That tax return that they did, they bought 3,000 comics, I think he said was the number. And he sold those. They sold out really quickly. They did a second run, reprint of it, and did another, I think, 6,000 books. Those sold out really quickly. And then they decided that they could make more. They were going to make more comics, and if they kept doing it, they figured they could make enough money in order to do this full time. So here's another thing then. How did they stop at the one comic book and they thought, this is enough, this is great, this is all we wanted to do? They could have stopped there and had a good experience and a great story to tell, but they decided to continue the story. They decided to make more of it, make a series of it, and they also committed to doing it full time. They figured out a way for the numbers to work, and they started doing it, not because they thought they could get rich. It was because they thought they could each make $2,000 off each book, and that would be enough for them to pay their rent so that they could continue to make comic books. That's why they did it, to avoid the regular slog of work, I guess, and do what they loved. So I don't know how I'd sum up that really neatly, but that was an interesting component of something that they did. Another thing that they did was they controlled their characters. I don't know the entire history of everything and how all the licensing went for movies and all that kind of stuff, but I do know initially they were running, as he described, a mini empire. They controlled their characters. They were working really, really hard. And, things were taking off. People were reading it more. It was expanding. Things did really well, including the first movie that they put out. It did really well money-wise, but it also fed into their business of comics. They did really well. And so I'm going to say they also put in the hard work in order to grow it and see how they could, expand it to something else other than just, we're going to do a few comics and that'd be the end of it. They still wanted to keep making more of it. So that really is inspiring. So those were just a few thoughts. Again, it's a Monday movie. I know this is going to get fewer views because there's not a super spicy title, but those of you who are loyal viewers, you'll know that I'm actually going to be interviewing Kevin Eastman because I've told you here. So now you're the first to know. Really excited about it. I want to ask him questions. Love to know in the comments below what questions you have for him. That would be really interesting to know. Maybe I'll use the questions. I don't know. I only have 20 minutes with him, but we'll make the most of it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe and like. That stuff really helps me out. And if you haven't backed Downcast yet, it is in the link in the description below, and you can back it and help us get to 30 grand. That would be really great. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you next time.